What's good, y'all? Another vlog video for you because I know it took a little while for me to even do this. And on top of that, more of my poetry, more of my work. Today, I actually decided to share some pieces with y'all, or at least two of them, at least two pieces, just so y'all are updated on what I'm talking about, where my mind is at, how I feel about what's going on lately. And who knows, this vlog might be short. It might be shorter than the previous one that I've put up on my channel. Cause like I said, I'm not going crazy with it. I'm not worried about it too much. The only time I'm gonna be posting stuff on YouTube is when I feel like being able to post stuff on YouTube. When the time is right. And this time, it was. Because today I want to talk about how I mean, there's so much to discuss, as if you've never heard about it already. But as I always say, I'm giving y'all my perspective on things. Me. Whether you agree or disagree, that's how it is. And I feel like these days, when it comes to setting expectations for yourself, let alone other pieces of work that you've managed to get out of people this time around, what's it like behind the scenes of what people really go through when it comes to showing their face out to the public, and yet they're all to themselves at times. I feel like that eventually, when I get to that point in my life, that's going to be the same thing for me. Politics, let's just say that with politics, it can get shady. That's the bottom line of that conversation, because we could talk about it any time of day, but I'm not that big of a politics guy. It's just that the things that stand out to me, in which that includes politics, to get involved with that. The ones that stand out to me, those are the ones that I discuss. And you'll pretty much get it throughout my pieces that I post up and update for y'all in order for y'all to understand where I'm coming from, right? So you got it right there. I ain't got to go any further than that. Expectations, though. I'm pretty sure that I've brought this up before. But when it comes to having expectations for something, I feel like it's that whole thing where you gotta know when you can appreciate something a lot more for what it is, even if it wasn't what you thought it was gonna be, if it didn't turn out the way you wanted it to be, or exactly how you wanted it to be, you know? When it comes to expectations, that's the thing with me, because I feel like if you're going to set the bar that high for yourself, you got to be able to meet that, because if you don't, not only are you disappointed, but then you got others disappointed. You know, you going on trying to build off of that hype. The next thing you know, if you don't live up to that, then it's like you're not fulfilled. You don't feel fulfilled. Yeah, you still go on and continue doing what you're doing, but after what happened, it's like, how can I do better, get better with this, if the last thing I did was so disappointing? I wanted it to be the greatest thing that I did. Instead, it didn't turn out that way. See, that's the thing with me. I don't like putting myself in that position, because I've already mentioned to y'all before that I'm really going to tap into the music this time. I'm really going to tap into my work in poetry and anything else that I do outside of that. I'm going to give it my all, but I'm going to make sure to put the time into it, put the effort into it, put the passion into it so that I can grow with it as I go along. Quality over quantity. The only reason for me to continue what I'm doing is because I do it for the love of it. I ain't doing it for the sake of it. Okay? I'm not doing it for the sake of it, because if I did, wouldn't you think that I'd be out there already getting famous off of that? Think about that. Wouldn't you think I'd be out there already? Trying to build fame off of something so quick just because I wanted to get there so bad, and because with the internet and social media, it's easier access for that to happen. I'm not trying to allow myself to get involved with that. I want to make sure that I take the time necessary to craft what I'm putting together and put it out there when I'm ready to put it out there. And I did bring this up before. When I drop something, I'm just going to drop it, because I don't like deadlines. I can't stand deadlines and release dates, because I'm expected to drop something on that day, and if it doesn't happen, that's only because it's on delay, it got canceled, and anybody will feel the need to try to speculate, spread rumors, craft theories into what they think went wrong. That's not always the case. Sometimes that has happened. Something can go wrong. That has happened. But there have been other times when that's not the case. It's all about going back, fixing what needed to be fixed, what needed to be touched up before you officially release something out there to the world to receive. And that's where the whole thing of expectations come in, because I keep it moderate. I make sure to keep it moderate because I think it's best for me to do that. When I do that, there's a chance that I could actually appreciate more of what I did previously so that I can get better as I go along. And that's my take on that. Not everybody is going to think the same way as me when it comes to that, keeping almost everything moderate. Because there's plenty of people out here who's going to have high expectations for something, because depending on what you put out, when they expect something out of you, you got to meet that. If you don't, they'll be disappointed, right? But that's why I made it such a huge thing for me to mention that, so that way I'm not trying to set the bar too high for myself, but I'm also trying to make sure that the quality is there so that people will know what I'm going for, and that's what they're going to get out of me from that point on. It's just a matter of growth. That's all I'm worried about. I ain't worried too much about trying to top myself, trying to compete with myself while I'm trying to compete with everybody else. I'm trying to stay in my own lane. And that's not me dissing myself. That's me disciplining myself in a way. It sounds weird when I say that now, but I'm disciplining myself in terms of, no, let me slow down, ease up, and make sure that I know what I'm getting myself into once I really get hands-on with it, once I really get into the groove of things. I know what I'm talking about, and I know the ins and outs of certain things, and that down the line, I just get better and better and better with it. I need all the time I can get in order for me to put together what I'm putting together, and that I can make it the best that it can be. I'm not saying it's going to be the best thing that I've ever put out. I'm talking making it the best that I can make it. Not everything is perfect. Not everything is going to go my way. It's just a matter of how I get there and what can I do to improve on it. That's it. That's all there is to it. But now, getting into the music aspect of it all. It's a lot that's out here these days. A lot of beef going on out here these days. And I'm sure y'all have heard about them at this point. What's my take on them? Well, put it to you like this. With music, it could be everything you wanted it to be, or it could be something that it's not, and yet you go along with it anyway. You're going to have people who want to look up to you, believe in what you're capable of putting out there to the world, that you can just continue to do that for the rest of your career, for the rest of your life. Who knows when you're going to stop? Because once you're in it, you can't help but continue doing it. But the way I see it, you got to be in it for the right reasons. Otherwise, it can break you. They might even try to do it right in front of your face. That reality is going to knock you upside your head if you don't realize that sooner. You know? And I feel like that when it comes to beef, I did talk about this at one point. I did talk about rap beef before. It was a specific one that I was getting into, and I felt like, okay, there was no need for all of this back and forth. It's just petty. It's just petty. If you look through my vlogs and find the video where I mentioned that, you'll know what I'm talking about. But in terms of rap beefs that's going on out here, specifically with that, I feel like there have been times when it's like a court case of the new school versus the old heads. And while the old heads are trying to set the record straight, trying to teach the younger generation of what it means to be in this game and seek longevity within this game so you don't become another one of those people who was mentioned as someone who just dropped off, someone who fell off. And given the fact that you're inspired by these artists, that you looked up to these artists, when really it would sound like as if that's just being said for the sake of being said, only for the end result of what comes out of that. When you got somebody trying to show you the way of being able to maintain a music career without falling off, trying to get you to understand the ins and outs of this whole thing instead of just you jumping into it, and the next thing you know, someone is there to take your place. Once you fall off, then someone else is there to take your place, only for you to try to compete with them, therefore competing with yourself. Because even if you got a hit, 2 hits, 3 hits, you try your best to try to top that. They would try their best to top that. And when they can't, that's only because they're only going to be as good as their hits. Like, it's one thing to talk about how you're looking at the rap game as it is now and how commercial hip-hop is the catalyst for being a part of hip-hop rap as a whole to be the biggest genre known to any one of us viewers, listeners right now. But when it comes to the artist that's trying to bring back what came before, to acknowledge the fact that, yeah, that music still exists, that music is still here. Instead of being oblivious to it, why not just appreciate it for what it is? Even if it may not be the best thing you've ever heard, at least it's something. It may not be the best thing that they've ever heard, but at least it's something. And when I talk about recent rap beef, you know which ones I'm talking about. I just feel like, this generation of what we got in terms of hip-hop right now, sure, we've had music like this in the past. I can't deny that. We've had music like this in the past. Okay. I get that. But in terms of how it's done now, it's like, nah. Some of us will want to have that hip-hop to come back, where it's like, give us some substance, some lyricism, some clever wordplay, instead of just coming out the gates with it, just coming out straightforward with it. And there's nothing much to it except the beat, the bass, and the ad-libs. Me, I'm just one person. I'm just one person speaking on that. Anybody who feels the same way, okay, they feel the same way. Anybody who doesn't feel the same way, well, that's how they feel. But that's where I'm coming from with this whole thing. You know? That's what I think. That's how I see it. Not everybody is going to see what I see. Not everybody is going to hear what I hear. People interpret art differently. That's how it goes. And on that note, the last thing that I want to get into briefly, really quickly, I got a chance to look at one of my pieces of work that I've written down, that I was typing up, and I thought about the process of how I was putting that together in terms of talking about causes and movements that happens today, and yet I still feel the need to question what it's like, not just in the forefront, but what about on the sides and behind these causes, these movements? Sometimes it could be questionable, because what happens when there are people who say and do things that contradicts them? Unless I'm out of line for saying something like that, I tend to question that. I get the intention behind that. I get the intention of what that's supposed to be. Get people talking about this. the Black Lives Matter, the LGBT plus community, the Me Too / Time's Up, any cause, any movement that takes place, I'm all for it. But there have been times I question them. It's just me curious as to why there are scenarios that could contradict these things. And yet, we continue to go forward with it. It's only because we're trying to be persistent in getting people to see everything. Well, put it this way, the history behind all of that. Trying to get people to understand the history behind why these causes, these movements happen. And like I said, I'm all for it, but there are times I question it. Does it really have to hurt that bad to be curious as to, okay, we get the intention behind it, but what is it really doing? Because I always say it's all about progression. I always say that, and I'm going to keep saying that. It's all about progression. But with progression, it can also come with some damage. Because not everybody is going to be on the same page. The thing is, for me, it's a matter of how you approach it. Are you really for these causes? Are you really for these movements? That you are willing to speak up on these matters? And that you mean what you say? Based off of experience, especially that. Or you're just doing it for the sake of getting attention. For the sake of getting attention. Just to get your name and your face out there. Only to say that you're for it, but really you're not. You are just there to be there and make a mockery out of it, in a sense. Because it's like, how are you for it if your words and actions contradicts that? It's something that I kept thinking about when it came to it. But like I said, this was going to be brief. It's up to y'all on how y'all feel about these things. I already gave you my side of it. What's yours? I'm about to get off this thing. This is Blue Flames the Poet. And I'm out.